The Galactic Empire liked to pretend it was unshakable, an ancient machine of order, ceremony, and perfectly filed bureaucratic paperwork. But when entire star systems began flickering in and out of existence like malfunctioning lanterns, even the Empire could no longer hide the truth. Something was catastrophically wrong. And so, with monumental reluctance and several diplomatic disclaimers, it called for help from the one species it least understood and most distrusted. Humanity. Captain Mara Elian had expected the summons, but she still felt the weight of it as she stepped onto the bridge of the Dauntless. Her crew was assembled, each absorbed in their own brand of pre-mission chaos. She took a steadying breath. Leadership was often about pretending you weren't alarmed, even if the universe was rearranging itself like confused origami. "Tavio," she said, "tell me that noise isn't the ship preparing to explode." Dr. Tavio Mendez looked up from a tangle of gravity coils, exasperated hair half shielding his eyes. "Define explode," he said with an earnestness that made Mara reconsider ever asking him questions. "Violently. All at once." "Oh, then no. This is more of a friendly rumble. The new converter doesn't like being installed upside down." "You installed it upside down." Cade Strick's call from the navigation console. "He does this. It's a hobby, like knitting, but dangerous." Cade lounged in his seat, boots propped where regulations strictly said they shouldn't be. An ex-smuggler with a grin that suggested permanent mischief. He had somehow charmed his way into legitimate service. Mara kept him around because he survived the kind of situations that turned other people into heroic cautionary tales. Juno Clark, meanwhile, was too focused to engage in the chaos. She stood near the viewport, her expression radiating wonder as she watched the stars slide past. A dreamer through and through, she had joined the mission because she believed the Empire's crisis was a chance, not just to save lives, but to help mend the fractured galactic community. Mara found Juno's optimism both exhausting and, in rare moments, comforting. "All right," Mara said. "Everyone settled? The Empire didn't send us to the Carthos expanse, so we could argue ourselves to death." "The arguing is part of our charm," Cade said. Tavio nodded gravely. "Statistically, it does improve group problem-solving dynamics." "Please don't encourage him," Mara replied. Juno turned away from the stars, her smile soft but determined. The request for assistance wasn't phrased kindly, but they wouldn't have sent for us if the situation wasn't dire. "The reports are frightening." "They're vague," Mara corrected, "and conveniently incomplete," which was precisely the Empire's style. Paint a disaster in diplomatic language, withhold anything potentially embarrassing, then task someone else with solving it. Yet despite everything, Mara felt a flicker of pride. Humanity had earned a reputation across the stars, not for superiority or tradition, but for adaptability. Humans improvised. Humans adapted. Humans survived the impossible by refusing to accept that the impossible was final. The Dauntless dropped out of transit with a soft shudder. The Carthos expanse unfolded before them, a stretch of star systems so vast and quiet that navigators once compared it to a sleeping beast. Now it looked ill. The nearest sun pulsed erratically, sputtering like a faltering heart. Entire planets dimmed and brightened in irregular rhythms, their orbits shimmering with distortions. Space itself seemed unsteady, as though the fabric of reality were struggling to remember its own pattern. Cade whistled low. "That's not normal. I've seen weird things, but this is ambitious." Mara shared his alarm, but kept her voice even. Scanned for known distress signals. Tavio bent over his console. "I'm detecting something massive on the fringe of the system. No life signs. No power signatures. It's just drifting." "Visual," Mara ordered. The screen flickered, revealing a colossal alien dreadnought, a ship built centuries before humanity's first orbital launch. Its hull was scarred, dented, and marked with strange patterns that glimmered faintly like cold embers. Symbols, if they were symbols, twisted across the metal, carved with an unsettling irregularity. They didn't resemble the writing of any known species. Juno stepped closer. "That's haunting." "It's creepy," Cade corrected. "Let's use the right terminology." Mara studied the drifting giant. "Any movement? Any automated response?" "None," Tavio said. It's like it was abandoned in a hurry. Or erased, Juno murmured. The words settled over the bridge like dust. Mara glanced at her. Explain. These patterns, Juno hesitated, choosing her words with care. They don't behave like language. They read more like impressions. Emotional residue. Something marked this ship not to communicate, but to leave a feeling behind. Who carves emotions into a hull? Cade asked. Someone who wanted to be understood beyond words. Juno said. Tavio straightened abruptly. Captain, I'm detecting faint space-time distortions around the symbols. Not active, just residual. Whatever caused this, it wasn't a weapon I recognize. Mara exhaled. The Empire wanted answers. Humanity needed answers. And the empty dreadnought was the only lead they had. Prepare the shuttle, she said. We're boarding. Cade groaned. Of course we are. Why walk into a perfectly good mystery when we could run toward it at full speed? That's the spirit, Mara said. He blinked. Wait, are you encouraging me? Juno laughed under her breath, and even Tavio cracked a smile. As the crew moved to embark, Mara paused at the viewport, studying the colossal ship and the trembling star behind it. She felt a familiar tightening in her chest, the mingling of fear and resolve. This mission wasn't simply dangerous. It was unprecedented. The Carthos expanse wasn't just failing. It was unraveling. But humanity had survived worse odds. And if the galaxy was truly shifting beneath their feet, then there was no team she would rather lead into the unknown. Eyes open, everyone, she said as the shuttle doors closed. The Empire wants answers. Let's get them, but let's stay alive while we're at it. Cade grinned. I like those odds. As the shuttle disengaged and drifted toward the silent dreadnought, the flickering star dimmed again, as if holding its breath. The void was waiting for them, and whatever they found inside that derelict giant would determine whether the galaxy's turmoil was a crisis to be solved or the first tremor of something far worse. The dreadnought's interior greeted the team with a silence so absolute it felt physical. Dust motes drifted in the stale air, each movement amplified by the hollow vastness around them. The ship had once been a fortress, its architecture stern, its corridors structured with imperial precision. Now it resembled a mausoleum carved into metal. Mara advanced carefully, her boots echoing. No bodies, no debris, she muttered. Whatever happened wasn't a battle. It wasn't abandonment either, Juno said, analyzing the corridor walls with cautious fascination. No personal items, no signs of evacuation, no data slates left behind. It's as though the crew simply ceased to exist. Cade shuddered theatrically. Excellent. Love a good existential horror. Still, he kept his blaster drawn, his posture alert despite the jokes. Tavio knelt beside a panel, opening it with a practiced flick. Energy signatures are deeply degraded. But the odd part is the pattern. Like something drained the entire system, not just the power cells. Define drained, Mara said. Tavio hesitated. Imagine someone removed the concept of electricity. That's not reassuring, Cade muttered. The deeper they traveled, the more the ship's unnatural stillness pressed around them. Every corridor bore faint markings similar to the symbols carved into the hull, erratic grooves, uneven depths, unsettling curves. They were not decorative. They were intrusive, like scars inflicted on the vessel itself. Juno paused in front of a particularly dense cluster of them, running her gloved fingers just above the metal. They're not meant to be read. They're meant to be felt. Whoever or whatever did this wanted to leave a lasting impression. Yeah, Cade asked. And what impression are you getting? That's something mourned here, she whispered. A low hum suddenly thrummed through the corridor, vibrating under their feet. Mara raised her weapon. Tavio, talk to me. He tapped rapidly at his scanner. Not the ship. Something outside. A distortion wave. The hum swelled, then resolutely faded. The silence returned, heavier than before. Mara fought the urge to look over her shoulder. We're running out of time. Move. They reached the dreadnought's bridge, one of the few areas with an intact interface. Holographic displays flickered weakly, struggling to project ghostly fragments of data. Tavio hurried to the central terminal. If anything survived the energy drain, it'll be here. As he worked, Juno approached the captain. This ship wasn't simply destroyed, she said softly. It was erased with precision. Mara nodded, meaning someone had both motive and the capability. And they may not be finished, Juno replied. Cade leaned against the bulkhead, scanning the darkened corners. Wonderful, outmatched and underinformed. Classic human adventure. Tavio emitted a triumphant shout. I have something. A projection flared above the console, fragmented recordings looping erratically. Shadows moved across the images. Silhouettes of crew members rushing through corridors, their movements frantic and confused. The sound was warped, a garbled mix of shouts and static. Can we clean that up? Mara asked. Not much, but there. Tavio adjusted the playback, isolating a clearer sequence. A senior officer appeared, face pale with terror. Cannot stop it. Patterns expanding, everyone forgetting. Static consumed the last words, swallowing them into a smear of noise. Juno inhaled sharply. Forgetting? Captain, what if the crew didn't die? What if they were wiped? Cade finished grimly. Again, not reassuring. Before Mara could respond, the ship shook. Not violently, but perceptibly, like something massive brushing against its exterior. The lights flickered. A low groan echoed through the frame. That's not structural settling, Tavio said. Mara snapped into motion, returned to the shuttle. Now. They retraced their path swiftly. With each step, the ship grew darker, the light strips dimming as though being swallowed. Cade muttered every curse he knew, some in languages he barely understood. As they neared the airlock, another tremor rippled through the dreadnought. The metal beneath them shuddered. Something's attaching to the hull, Tavio said breathlessly. A large mass, alien configuration, closing fast. Cade's eyes widened. Please tell me it's not angry. It's coming in too fast to ask politely, Tavio said. They burst into the shuttle, sealing the hatch just as a deep vibration resonated through the dreadnought. Mara strapped in, voice sharp. Launch! Cade slammed the controls, sending the shuttle shooting away from the drifting giant. Behind them, the dreadnought warped, its surface bending inward, dents blooming like spreading bruises. Something unseen pressed against it, distorting the metal with silent force. Juno leaned forward, horror etched across her face. Captain, look! The dreadnought collapsed. Not an explosion, not a mechanical failure, but in a silent inward implosion. Compressed into nothing, folding like a crushed paper lantern until the space it had occupied was empty. Gone. Erased. The shuttle's interior was deathly quiet. Finally, Cade exhaled. Okay, I did not enjoy that. What was that? Juno said. What could do that so cleanly? Tavio checked his readings. Whatever pressed on the hull wasn't matter. It was absence. Mara stared at the vacant space where the dreadnought had been. Her pulse hammered, but her voice stayed level. The Empire knew this was more than failing systems. They called us because they're out of explanations. And maybe out of options. Juno added. Mara nodded once. Then we find answers. No panic. No retreat. Cade gave a humorless laugh. You know, most sane people would call this a good time to panic. Good thing none of us are particularly sane, Mara said. They angled the shuttle back toward the Dauntless, the empty starscape stretching before them. The mission was no longer an investigation. It had become a race against something that could unmake whole ships without leaving a trace. The dreadnought was gone. The truth remained. And the next step would demand more from them than any of them were ready to admit. The Dauntless felt smaller after the dreadnought's erasure, as though the cosmos had leaned closer, eager to see what the humans would do next. Mara paced the bridge, forcing her mind into disciplined focus. Fear wanted attention. She refused to indulge it. We need a hypothesis, she said. We have a ship that was erased, an unidentified force capable of collapsing matter, and symbols that behave like emotional residue. Someone connect the dots. Tavio rubbed his temples. The distortion we encountered wasn't destructive energy, it was subtractive. It didn't attack the dreadnought. It removed its presence from the surrounding space-time. Like deleting a file? Cade asked. Tavio nodded. A terrifyingly efficient one. Juno folded her arms, her expression torn between awe and unease. The symbols weren't warnings. They were expressions: fear, confusion, grief. The crew marked the ship with their final impressions. They must have sensed something approaching, something that defied language. Mara stopped pacing, which means whatever erased them wasn't acting randomly. Cade snorted. Great. Purposeful doom. The best kind. Despite the flippant tone, Mara saw the tension behind his eyes. Humor was a shield. She chose not to pierce it. She pointed to the star map hovering above the conference table. The distortion that consumed the dreadnought emanated from here, the convergence point, a gravitational nexus surrounding a dying star. Tavio leaned in. The star is cycling faster than predicted. If the distortions continue, its collapse could ripple across the entire region. So we had strayed into the most unstable phenomenon we've ever encountered, Cade said. Classic dauntless strategy. Mara allowed herself the faintest smile. Exactly. The journey to the convergence point was short, but the tension coiled through the ship like a living thing. Space shimmered around them, filaments of warp light stretching and collapsing in patterns too fluid to be natural. Tavio stared at his console. The distortion field is interacting with our sensors. I'm getting readings that contradict themselves. Give me the contradictions, Mara said. We'll take what we can get. It's not about data, Juno murmured. Her gaze was fixed on a viewport, where reality itself seemed to pulsate. It's about intent. Whatever is out there is trying to exist among us, but it doesn't know how. Cade frowned. Friendly neighborhood reality eater? Wonderful. Mara turned to him. Scan the outer perimeter. Any sign of ships? He hesitated. Captain? We might have a small diplomatic problem. On the display, a fleet emerged, sleek vessels marked with the crest of the Sildari Dominion, one of humanity's least patient neighbors. The comms channel crackled. Human vessel, this is Commander Dravik. You are trespassing in a restricted zone. Power down immediately. Mara muttered. Perfect timing. Cade opened the channel. Dravik, always a pleasure. Love the new ship arrangement. Very symmetrical. Silence, human, Dravik snapped. We detected your shuttle's escape vector from the anomalous dreadnought. Explain yourselves. Mara stepped forward. We're investigating the same phenomenon you are. The dreadnought was erased by a force we have yet to identify. Dravik's eyes narrowed. You expect us to believe a human crew discovered something the Empire did not. Cade whispered to Tavio. He's so grumpy. Do they ever relax? Not in recorded history. Tavio whispered back. The distortion around the star intensified, sending ripples across both fleets. Dravik faltered, eyes widening as his ship trembled. Mara seized the moment. Look around you, Commander. Whatever is happening doesn't care about our politics. We either face it together or suffer separately. Dravik hesitated, and that was all the convergence point needed. A wave of warp space cascaded toward them. Brace! Mara shouted. The Dauntless shuddered violently. Consoles flickered, alarms wailed, and gravity skittered, tilting everyone briefly sideways. Tavio grabbed the edge of his console. The star's collapsing early. The distortion is accelerating. Something is emerging. Juno's voice was steady despite the chaos. It's responding to the presence of thinking minds, maybe even attracted to them. Fantastic! Cade grunted as he forced the ship level. We're cosmic catnip. On the screen, shadows formed, not cast by light, but by absence. They moved as though exploring. Curious fractures in the fabric of existence drifting toward the assembled ships. Mara's pulse hammered. Options. Now! Tavio wiped sweat from his brow. My prototype stabilizer could counteract the distortions, but it's unfinished and untested, and it might maybe sort of detonate. Friendly detonation, Cade clarified. Under ideal circumstances. Tavio corrected. Do we have ideal circumstances? Mara asked dryly. Absolutely not. Then it's perfect, she said. They sprinted to the engineering bay, where the stabilizer sat on a makeshift platform, an awkward assembly of coils, emitters, and components Cade had definitely acquired from questionable sources. Juno approached the device with reverence. This could let us reach out, not with language, but with resonance, emotion, intention. Mara nodded. Tavio, bring it online. The device hummed to life, trembling as though uncertain of its own purpose. Cade watched the readouts. It's either building up energy or stalling. Hard to tell. Those are opposites, Mara said. With this thing, they're cousins. The ship jolted again. Shadows pressed against the windows, distorting the stars beyond. They didn't radiate malice, only confusion, as if unsure of their own existence. Juno's voice was hushed. They're not attacking. They're reacting. They're trying to understand us. Mara inhaled slowly. Then let's give them something to understand. Tavio activated the stabilizer. A resonant pulse swept outward, soft, steady, like a heartbeat released into the void. For a moment, the shadows froze. The distortions paused. The stars' frantic collapse slowed, as though listening. Juno closed her eyes, focusing. They feel our intent. Curiosity, fear, hope. They're answering. Cade monitored the energy levels. The device can't hold this output. We got maybe 30 seconds before it melts through the deck. Mara steadied her stance. Then 30 seconds will have to be enough. The shadows shifted, their form stabilizing slightly, like clarity returning to a blurred image. A sense, not a voice, not a thought, but a recognition, swept through the ship. Juno gasped. They didn't know we were here. They didn't know anyone was. Their presence erases inadvertently. They're awakening blindly. The stabilizer sparked violently. Tavio shouted, "It's overloading!" Mara grabbed the device's power coupler. "Shut it down!" They yanked the cables free. The stabilizer collapsed with a sharp crack and a puff of acrid smoke. The resonance faded. The shadows wavered, then drifted back toward the collapsing star, dissolving into the distortion. Silence claimed the ship. Mara exchanged a breathless look with her crew. They had made contact, brief, imperfect, but real. Tavio swallowed. We did it." "No," Mara said, voice firm. "We started something, and now we finish it." As the star trembled and the shadows circled in uncertainty, the Dauntless prepared for the next step, whatever dangerous, unprecedented course it demanded. The stabilizer's last pulse lingered in the air like a fading echo, its resonance woven through the crew's nerves. The Dauntless drifted at the edge of a collapsing star, its hull trembling as the convergence point deepened into a vortex of fractured space. The shadows, half-formed impressions of existence, circled the dying star with hesitant curiosity. Mara steadied herself against the command console. Status. Tavio wiped soot from his fingers. We bought ourselves time. The distortions have slowed, but not stopped. They're waiting for us or for something else. Juno watched the swirling shadows, her posture taut with a mix of fear and wonder. They heard us, Captain. Not perfectly, but enough. They're responding to intention, not language. We reached them once. We can reach them again. Cade was less convinced. We also almost crisped the ship. I'm still voting for Plan B. Mara raised an eyebrow. Which is? Leaving. Rapidly. Despite the tension, a small smile tugged at the corner of her mouth. Noted. Rejected. The star's surface rippled, like molten glass. Its gravity fluctuated violently, dragging the shadows toward its center before releasing them in jittering arcs. The visual distortion clawed at the edges of vision, making the bridge light swim. "These beings aren't trying to destroy anything," Juno whispered. "They're manifesting without understanding the consequences. Their existence is tearing at the fabric of reality. Intent doesn't negate impact," Tavio said. "If the star collapses while they're destabilizing space-time, the resulting shockwave could propagate across the expanse." Mara looked at the three of them, her team, each brilliant in their own chaotic way, and made her decision. We stabilized the convergence point, and we established communication before the distortion spread. Cade groaned. "So, Plan A. fix the universe. Totally normal. Exactly, she replied. The engineering bay felt like a wounded battleground. The prototype stabilizer lay in shattered pieces, smoke curling from scorched wires. But Tavio was already dismantling what remained, his excitement rekindled by necessity. If the device survived long enough to get their attention, then a refined version might maintain a resonance channel, he said. We just need increased harmonics, recalibrated emitters, and something you can actually build in 15 minutes? Cade interjected. Tavio paused. I can approximate one. Juno leaned close to the shattered coils. It doesn't need to be perfect. It only needs to reach them. If they can sense our emotional states, then we need to project clarity, purpose, cooperation. Mara frowned. Define cooperation. An invitation, Juno said, to coexist without destabilizing reality. That's ambitious, Cade muttered. That's humanity, Juno countered. The ship lurched. The vortex surrounding the star expanded, pulling the Dauntless several meters off course. Alarms wailed as gravity stuttered. Mara grabbed the rail. Time's up. Tavio, are we moving or not? He jammed a final component into place. It will work. Probably. Hopefully. Maybe. Cade, Mara ordered, get us close enough to deploy the device. That's the opposite of safe, he said, already sprinting to the bridge. So, of course, we're doing it. The Dauntless dug toward the convergence point. The star surface convulsed, sending lances of distorted light spiraling outward. Shadows swirled around the ship, their forms twisting and rippling with something like anticipation. Mara felt the weight of unseen attention pressing against her thoughts. Not invasive, but inquisitive, like a question without words. Juno's voice trembled with awe. They're listening. Good, Mara said. Let's give them something to hear. Tavio activated the rebuilt resonator. This time, the pulse radiating from the ship was steadier. Still fragile, still experimental, but confident. A soft thrumming filled the bridge, vibrating through their bones. The shadows froze. The vortex hesitated. And then the universe seemed to inhale. Juno stepped forward, eyes bright. They understand we're reaching out. They're responding with restraint. They're trying not to damage the star further. Can they stabilize it? Mara asked. They don't know how, Juno said, but they're willing to let us show them. Tavio's hands flew across a console. If they can anchor their presence around the star's core, they might counteract its collapse. But they need an anchor model, something that teaches them how to exist without erasing. Cade blinked. We're teaching cosmic beings how to politely occupy space. Yes, Tavio said. Fantastic. I'll add space etiquette instructor to my resume. Mara leaned over the railing. Tavio, given the anchor model. He initiated the projection. An energy pattern broadcast through the resonator, a kind of metaphysical blueprint demonstrating stable interaction with matter. Juno focused on the shadows, channeling calm, clarity, and intent. The shadows stretched toward the projection. They wavered, flickered, then aligned with the pattern. The star's violent pulsing slowed. The vortex compressed. The distortions no longer clawed outward. They folded inward, stabilizing like ripples calming on water. The bridge fell quiet as the cosmic storm softened around them. Then, slowly, the shadows retreated, drifting toward the star's surface, their presence smoothing its final tremors. They no longer erased. They anchored. They existed without consuming. Juno exhaled a shaky laugh. We did it! Cade wiped his brow. Define did, because I'm still shaking. Tavio sagged with relief. They're learning, and they're grateful. Mara stared at the star, now shining with restored brilliance. Calm, steady, alive. She felt a wave of quiet wonder. HFY, Cade murmured. Humanity fixes the unfixable with duct tape, emotions, and questionable engineering. Mara allowed herself a full smile. Not bad for a day's work. Minutes later, the Soldari fleet reappeared on sensors. Commander Dravik's voice crackled through the comms, strained with disbelief. Human vessel, what have you done? Mara answered evenly. Stabilized the anomaly and initiated peaceful contact. There was a long pause. We will require a full report, Dravik finally said. In person. Cade groaned. Great. We save the galaxy and get homework. Mara muted the channel and looked at her crew. We're not done. The shadows will need guidance. The Empire will demand explanations, and the rest of the galaxy will panic when they learn the truth. Juno nodded. Then we show them humanity's way. Adaptation, collaboration, curiosity. Tavio smiled tiredly. And reckless improvisation. Cade pointed a thumb at himself. And style. Mara looked out at the newly steady star, its light reflecting against a viewport. The galaxy fell into turmoil because it clung to old certainties. Maybe it's time for something new. She straightened, confident. Ready? Set a course, she said. The work is just beginning.